Susan had always believed that Evan's workshop carried too many ghosts. Not literal ghosts, though on Nova Station 17 that wasn't entirely impossible, but the ghosts of abandoned dreams, half-finished starship schematics pinned to the walls, dismantled plasma engines stacked like forgotten bones, and the heavy silence of a genius who no longer believed in his own brilliance. Evan had once been the station's youngest propulsion engineer. His theoretical engine, the Helion drive, had promised travel beyond mapped space. But after a catastrophic test failure, the funding council withdrew support, the board stripped him of his title, and the whispers began. Reckless, unstable, brilliant, but broken. The last whisper hurt him the most. Now Evan lay flat on the cold alloy floor of his workshop, staring blankly at the flickering ceiling strip lights. Tools were scattered around him as if the room had exhaled in despair. Another failure, another night alone, another reminder that the Helion drive would never be completed, and he would never escape the orbit of his own disappointment. He closed his eyes. He wasn't sure whether he was trying to sleep or simply giving up. The sharp hiss of the workshop's pressure door broke the silence. Susan stepped inside, brushing silver station dust off her coat. Her hair, normally in a clean twist, was loose from hours of field work. She paused when she saw him sprawled on the floor. "Evan, are you alive or just being dramatic again?" "Not sure," he muttered. She crossed the room, nudging a copper coil aside with her boot. "You can't keep doing this. You're letting a failed test define the rest of your life." Evan didn't respond. He didn't have the strength for another pep talk. But then, before Susan could speak again, a tiny sound trembled through the workshop. A chirp, high and distressed, almost like a cry. Susan froze. "Tell me you didn't adopt another malfunctioning robot pet." "That wasn't me," Evan said, sitting up despite himself. The sound came again, this time accompanied by the shuffle of claws. From the shadows under a collapsed crate, something small crawled out, glowing softly. It was no machine. It was a dragon. Not the mythic terrors humanity used to imagine, but a real, genetically engineered Drakion hatchling, designed centuries ago for interstellar terraforming before they'd gone mysteriously extinct. This one couldn't have been more than a week old. No bigger than a house cat. Its scales shimmered like molten glass, shifting colors with each breath. Its wings, translucent as polar ice, fluttered weakly as it stumbled forward. Susan inhaled sharply. "Evan, Drakions are extinct, illegal, lost for centuries. How?" "I don't know," Evan whispered, completely entranced. The hatchling chirped again, wobbling toward him on trembling legs. Something about the way it moved, determined but afraid, hit Evan harder than he expected. He knew that feeling too well. Without thinking, he extended a hand. The tiny dragon pressed its warm head into his palm, as though it had been waiting for this moment all its life. And something changed. A spark, not metaphorical, literal. A small arc of iridescent energy snapped between them, harmless but vivid. The hatchling's glow brightened, and its trembling eased. Susan stepped closer, eyes wide. "Evan, it resonated with you." "Impossible," he murmured, but he already felt the truth pulsing through his fingertips. Drakions had been engineered with energy bonding abilities, meant to synchronize with environmental cores on new worlds, but bonding with a human, that wasn't in any science text. The hatchling curled into Evan's lap, humming with a soft, radiant power, and for the first time in a very long time, he felt something warm in his chest, something dangerously close to hope. Over the next hours, the little dragon, whom Susan affectionately named Nova, revealed more of its extraordinary nature. It absorbed ambient electromagnetic energy, storing it in bioluminescent sacs. When content, it released the energy in harmless waves that rippled through the workshop. lighting dormant circuits and activating dead panels Evan had long given up on. At one point, an entire engine prototype hummed awake, lifting slightly from the work table as if acknowledging the creature's presence. Evan stared at the hovering engine, speechless. This is impossible. This resonance pattern, it's similar to what the Helion drive required. Nova chirped, nudging his elbow as if urging him to keep going. And suddenly it clicked. The missing variable in his equations, the anomaly he could never solve, the very flaw that had doomed his project. The Helion drive didn't need a synthetic energy core, it needed a living one, a catalytic organism capable of stabilizing and amplifying quantum energy fields. A Drachyon. He stood abruptly, startling Susan. "I can finish it." "Susan, Nova's energy signature matches the theoretical curve of Helion resonance. With her help, I can complete the drive." Susan blinked. "Are you saying your life's work was waiting for a dragon hatchling to wander into your workshop?" Evan actually smiled. Small, disbelieving, but real. "Looks like it." The next days blurred into a frenzy of genius. Evan worked with a vigor Susan hadn't seen in years, sketching equations so fast the holographic pads struggled to keep up, rewiring engine components, calibrating energy channels with Nova joyfully scampering across his shoulders. Where Evan's hands faltered, Nova offered sparks of stabilizing energy. When components overheated, the dragon purred soothing pulses that cooled them instantly. Susan documented everything, her scientific instincts driving her, though she could not deny the deeper, almost emotional reverence she felt watching Evan come back to life. The workshop that once felt like a tomb now thrummed like a heart. Evan's brilliance, long buried under doubt, shone again with relentless intensity. On the seventh night, the Helion drive stood complete. A sleek sphere of polished alloy, humming softly with Drachyon-infused power. Evan approached it slowly, Nova perched on his shoulder, glowing with anticipation. "Ready?" Susan whispered. Evan breathed out. "For the first time in years." "Yes." Nova leapt onto the drive, curling around its core. The engine came alive instantly, emitting a pure, resonant tone, the sound of potential, of breaking limits, of a future reborn. The lights across the workshop brightened. Gravity wavered. Space itself seemed to bend subtly, as if acknowledging the presence of something new. Evan's eyes shone with awe. "It works. Susan, it works." She laughed, half joy, half disbelief. "Evan, you've just rewritten propulsion science with the help of an extinct baby dragon," Nova chirped proudly. Evan gently lifted the creature into his arms. "I thought everything was over. I thought I had nothing left to give, but you—" The dragon pressed its snout to his cheek, and Evan's voice broke. Susan stepped beside him. "You weren't broken, Evan. You just needed a spark." He looked at Nova, then at Susan, and realized she was right. That night, as the Helion drive pulsed steadily behind them, Evan no longer lay hopeless on the workshop floor. Instead, he stood at the beginning of a new era, powered by a miracle no one could have predicted, and by a hatchling who had been just as lost as he was. Together, they had saved each other,